Hey, my name is Lizzie Smiley, and I absolutely love helping people connect with their calling and all the tools they need to kick roadblocks and excuses right out the door so they can cultivate the life they dream about. If you want to launch, grow, pivot, or scale your Etsy shop, or you've always wanted to develop the mindset and skills to run your own business, then I'm your girl. I've had that entrepreneurial spirit going strong since my very first lemonade stand, and now I'm a work-at-home mama with multiple online companies and a full-time Etsy shop, all while being present with my kids for the everyday chaos and most important milestones. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things business, mindset, Etsy, creativity, dazzling our customers, and so much more. There's plenty of room at this table for you, so scooch on in and let's go. I'm holding nothing back. Welcome to How to Sell Your Stuff on Etsy. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the show this week. We are going to be hanging out and talking with Brian Forbes about another amazing Etsy success story for a handmade maker. This is the coolest story ever. You guys are going to love it. Brian is very filled with wisdom. He has so many kind of hidden nuggets that he shares. And what's so great is that you guys have been asking me for like success stories that are earlier on, so I'm how many years in, and this is someone who they're just coming up on their 1 year mark on Etsy and already just really, really killing it. So it's so fun to hear from these people. Before I read you his bio and bring him on with us, I want to remind you about two little kind of newsy pieces that are going on. The first one is I'm compiling a list of ultra beginners, those of you who are excited about Etsy, you want to get started, you want to have success. You may already be on there, but you're not quite making it yet. And there are just like tech things or really beginner things that you have as questions that you need answered, but maybe it's embarrassing to ask, or you don't know where to ask, or you don't even know how to ask. And I am compiling a little group of people that we can maybe do some group coaching, and we can answer those questions, get those little tech things out of your way, because so many people who are extremely gifted, crafters, makers, people who could really do an amazing job on Etsy, and they're just held back by the technology and they're overwhelmed by the computer. And like that is like my sweet spot. Like I love helping people like you. So please go ahead and fill out the survey if you want to get more information about that as it evolves. And then the other thing, which I was just checking the list, and I have an overwhelming response from you guys of wanting this. So like very excited. We will get on top of this, and I want to find out if there's more of you. But I've been debating putting together a subscription newsletter where every week I will provide you with product opportunities. So I will do what most people don't have the time or expertise to do. And I will dig through Etsy and I will figure out where there are opportunities, where there are products that you could make if you're not sure what to sell, where there are like print on demand opportunities or digital product opportunities, like trend reports, things like that, the really meaty stuff where you could get in and know that you're going to have a better shot at success because there is demand for this thing and there is not a ton of saturation. So I want to hunt down those opportunities for you with a subscription newsletter. And then I'll send them to you every week, like at least 5 of them, including a little video showing you the data so that you can make an educated guess, not just me spitting out something from an SEO machine, but like an actual video of showing what I'm finding on Etsy and why I think it's a good opportunity. So fill out that survey if you would be interested in more information on that as well. And those are my 2 things going on right now. Let's get into Brian's bio. I'm Brian, proud husband and father of 2 great kids, and I have been making things from wood for around 25 years. In that time, I have made acoustic guitars, long stem pipes, Danish shields, wedding rings, magic props, kids' toys, and more. I've also written and published 6 books on woodworking covering a variety of topics. It's funny because over all those years, I never really knew I was a woodworker. It just kind of snuck up on me. I always used woodworking as a means to an end rather than a direct hobby. And whether that was making magic props when I was 11 because I couldn't afford them, or building guitars that were too nice for me to buy from a store, woodworking was always there. Over time and through all of my other hobbies intersecting with woodworking, I actually became a pretty fair woodworker. My books have great reviews, and I enjoy not only making things, but also teaching people how to make things from wood. My passion for long stem pipes, which is what he sells, started from watching a movie about a certain little fellow going on a long walk with his buddies to destroy a ring. I saw them smoking these beautiful pipes and was immediately curious about how they were made. After a little problem solving, which is the majority of what woodworkers do, I came up with a great method and have been making beautiful long stem wizard pipes ever since. That's me, the accidental woodworker. Beyond that, I've always had a side gig. I have a couple of websites, one about woodworking, which has over 1 million words published and over 1,000 articles. That's westfarthingwoodworks.com, which I'll have linked for you guys. And another on making beef jerky from ground beef, groundbeefjerky.com. I've published 17 books in total, some on woodworking, some on making jerky, some on blogging, and a kid's book that teaches kids the names of common tools. I even got my dad into writing, and he wrote a couple books on Jeep trails around Arizona. This guy's so cool. I currently have a full-time corporate job, which I love, and I fit Etsy and my side business into my life in a way that increases my income without pulling more time than I can spare away from my family time. Okay, so we are going to get into the nitty-gritty. This is a longer episode because we are just diving into the details, and Brian is sharing his story, but also weaving in a lot of insight, a lot of information, a lot of good training for you guys. So with that, please help me welcome Brian to the podcast. Hey, Brian, welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'm so excited we get to do this and we get to hear about your very unique niche. So thank you so much for your time today.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So tell us about you. Who is Brian separate from the Etsy? And then how did you end up getting onto Etsy?
So years ago, I would say probably about 10 years ago or so, just, trying to find unifying work and just kind of feeling like I was doing the same old thing over and over again. I had this idea to write a book. And I had been making guitars on my own for quite a while. So what I thought was, I'll play, for something that I know how to do well. And so I decided I would write a book on making acoustic guitars. And that was my first kind of, take a chance on yourself, I guess kind of moment, versus just, okay, well, we'll find a different job maybe, or we'll find a better job, or maybe we go back to school or something like that. But so I ended up writing a book because a lot of the guitar making books that are out there, they have a lot of gaps in it, and they also assume a lot of knowledge. So my first couple of books would say, step 1, book match 2 pieces of Indian rosewood, and then it would go right to step 2. It's like, well, wait a minute. There's a lot in that first sentence that you said, and I don't know how to do any of those things,
Okay.
So through the course of learning, I basically wrote a book that fills in a lot of those gaps, and I published it on Amazon. And it became one of the best-selling guitar making books on Amazon.
What?
Yeah. So really surprising. Again, the first time I took a chance on myself, and, I really put a lot of effort into it and really tried to write something that would be really helpful, to people. And it ended up being really helpful to people.
We have to link that, right? Did you already send me that link? We have to include that link.
Oh, I don't think I have, but I'm sure I can find it for you. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, we have to include that. I did not remember that part. That's incredible. Okay. Guitar book. Keep going. Sorry. That's so cool.
No, so I kind of kept going down that route, and I created a website, and basically I would have a little, how-to tutorial on something to do with guitar making. And then at the end of it, I would put, by the way, if you like my post, you'll love my book. And I would sell the books, that way, mostly through the website. Well, as time went on, I published more and more books, and I really thought that was going to be the thing, and since, it's been 10 years, I've published 17 books.
Oh
and
my gosh.
Now that sounds great. But the problem is none of them are Harry Potter,
right? Right.
So,
Yeah, sure.
So I still have a normal corporate job, which I do enjoy. Through publishing those books, it really just kind of taught me that I can teach myself, just about anything I needed to. I've never written a book. I never published a book. I never did any type or formatting or cover creation or any of those sub skills that you have to learn to do that. And I just started teaching myself those little sub skills one at a time. And after I did it a few times, I'm like, wow, okay, I was able to do that, and I was able to do that, and I was able to do that. So it really did give me the confidence to keep going with a lot of the stuff. And then Etsy just kind of came around because, I had this, without, bringing politics into anything, it's last few years has been a little tough on a lot of folks, and I've noticed that, I needed to do a little something to bring in some extra money for myself and for the family. So I decided that I had been making things out of wood forever. So I just thought, well, maybe let me try to sell some of the stuff that I make, because everybody that I've given it to or made something for, they always say, oh, I love it. It's so nice and it's so pretty. And, but those are your friends and your family, and you're giving it to them for free, so it's really rare that someone like that will say, hey, thank you for this. It is ugly and I don't like it. They're never going to do that. Yeah. So I had a little bit of, I was a little scared. I was plotting my Etsy store for, I've been in Etsy for a year now, but I started plotting about 2 years ago. And I really, really regret that I dragged my feet for a year to do it. And I listened to your podcast a ton during that year. I mean, I was really just So I was filling my drive to work because I have about a 45-minute ride to work. So I
Oh my
was filling
goodness.
my time with work with podcasts in the car because, I mean, your commute to work, even if it's 20 minutes, you've got 40 minutes, 5 days a week where you can get free education.
Yes.
So educate yourself. Don't listen to the same top 40 songs 40 minutes a day, there and back, or whatever it is. Pick something that can help you learn. So I picked your podcast and I learned. And honestly, I really regret that I didn't listen to the start now, parts that would come up all the time because I just sat there for a year and in a year it didn't get any better because part of me really thought, well, this will just kind of work its way out and I'll be fine, and it really didn't. Nothing really changed,
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, it's time. So I made a bunch of pipes, listed them on Etsy, and within, I want to say 2 weeks, I started getting sales. And then now it's gotten to a point where, I get at least one a day on average. My average is almost two a day. But during Christmas, I mean, I was doing, gosh, from November through January, pretty much, I was doing about 30 a week,
Oh my
which,
goodness. And
which
oh
is
my goodness.
fantastic. Well, and just getting great reviews and stuff too made me feel good. Because again, back to giving them to family and friends, they're never going to tell you it's terrible.
Yes.
Well, when I get someone to give me $60, for one of these things, they're not going to hold back their opinion, especially after parting with their money. And I have, I think, about 150 5-star reviews, something like that. So it made me feel good that, all this time I really was making a good thing,
I completely relate. Okay, so how did you end up in pipes? Like, how did you pick that niche, that product? Like, I need the background, and I'm going to have follow-up questions because I'm very curious. Because it just so happened to be a pretty good opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what's funny is being a woodworker, the majority of woodworking, and you've done it before with the signs and everything. So the majority of woodworking is really solving problems. You want to make something, but you may not know exactly how to make it. You're familiar with your tools, so you know what they do. But it's really just a process of problem solving. And the joke I make is I remember I was watching a movie about these really short people running to a volcano to destroy a ring. And all of the people in those movies were smoking these very long stemmed pipes. And I was watching, and for the whole time I was watching, I almost just kind of got lost in thought as I was thinking, I wonder how they drill a hole through something that's curved, because you
Wow.
can't drill a hole on a curve. Holes go straight.
Yeah.
That's how a drill works. And so by the time, a 4-hour movie finished, I pretty much worked it out in my head how I was going to do it. So I went out into the shop and I started making them. And again, at first it was just kind of, this was maybe 10 years ago or more, when I was
Okay.
making these, probably even more than that. But I figured out how to make them and I figured out how to make them well. And then I brought them to a friend that actually still smokes. I haven't smoked in years and years and years. I'm probably the only tobacco pipe maker that doesn't smoke. Um,
I was wondering
but I mean, I have,
if they were actually smokable or if they were just for
oh yeah.
decoration.
Oh yeah, they're 100% functional. And what's funny is I studied years ago when I was trying to learn how to make them. I studied traditional pipe making
Oh
techniques
my
because I
goodness.
wanted to make something that had the look, but also still had those fundamental functions that a good tobacco pipe would need to have. So I've got kind of the best of both worlds. I have a pipe that looks the way that I want it to look, but also is made mechanically the same way as a traditional tobacco pipe. If you were to buy one from a high-end manufacturer, it'd be the same item, or at least the same airways and the same method. But yeah, it just, I kind of figured out how to make this thing, and then I made a bunch of them, and like I said, and I gave them to people, and everybody really said they liked them. So then you fast forward to a couple of years ago, and I was trying to come up with a way to make a few extra bucks for the family because again, I really like my job. Like, I'm not trying to run away from it. I have a good job. It's a corporate job. The company's great, really good culture, everything. Like, it's everything I wanted, and it's fantastic. Just looking to make a little extra, right? Which I
Mhm.
think most people, that's probably all they need. I mean, you hear these stories about people that make, $100,000 a month on Etsy, and that's amazing and it's cool. And I would definitely love to know what that feels like. Um, but,
Yeah.
but most people, if you made an extra $200 to $500 a month, it would be a significant amount of money. Even $1,000 a month, I think, for most people would be a life-changing amount of money. I
Yes.
mean, well, at least, not so much now, but I mean, a few years ago, depending on when you bought your house, your mortgage might not be much more than that. So if you tell the story the right way, Etsy pays for your house,
Yes.
and But anyway, so I listed the pipes because I thought to myself, well, this is the one item that I've made consistently that people have always said they enjoy. They liked my acoustic guitars when I was making those, but it takes me a month to make a guitar, especially now with the wife and kids and everything like that. I mean, so I needed something I could make quickly and sell quickly. And that's how I decided to do the pipes.
Okay, so gosh, because those are such different things. So, but you've sold some guitars on Etsy or not really?
So I never sold them on Etsy. When
Okay.
I was selling them, this was, probably a decade ago, and it was, you'd pop them on Craigslist and,
Okay.
take your chances with who you're meeting and stuff like that. And that was about how I did that. And making guitars is fun. Like I said, I figured it'd be easier to sell a $600 or $60 item
Yes.
rather than, a $6,000 item.
No, I think it was a
I mean, 'cause
brilliant move. And I'm curious, did you play with any other products?
So I made a couple things since Etsy or since starting on Etsy. I made these cool wooden lanterns that I saw. I do have a little bit of the squirrel syndrome when it comes to seeing something that looks kind of cool. Because
You
again,
want
with
to figure out how to
woodworking,
do it. You want to solve the
well,
puzzle.
yeah. Well, and that's what it is. Honestly, it really is that curiosity, and that want to solve the puzzle. And so I saw these really cool wooden lanterns. I put those on Etsy. I sold a few of them. I priced them probably a little bit higher than I should. If I dropped them down a bit, I think I could sell more. But right now the pipes are selling so much that I'm not trying to add something else that's going to be difficult. I'm trying to add right now some accessories, so like tampers, which is basically like a little cylindrical thing that you would use to tap the tobacco into the hole versus just
Oh,
poking it in
yeah.
with your finger. That's a thing, for pipe makers, or for pipe smokers rather. I've had a sewing machine forever. Miss Ludwig's sixth grade sewing class, taught me how to do that. And so I made these long cases that hold the pipes. So I have those that are on there.
Cool.
So I'm trying to build a little bit of a product mix that kind of supports the pipes, but still has that rusticy, kind of, old fashioned, Middle Ages kind of vibe to it,
Well,
which
it
is what I like.
totally does.
Thank
Like,
you.
I almost wonder
Thank
if you
you.
could throw in some keywords, like if you had any space in the tags, or if you wanted to duplicate a listing, and you may already be doing this. I didn't study it in detail, but for what are they called? The fairs, why can't I think of that word?
Oh, Renaissance fairs.
Oh, thank you. The word medieval was stuck in my brain. Yeah, or even just
That's
people
okay.
who like cosplay, like people who dress up. Do you know what I mean? Like costuming.
Oh yeah. So I got about 130 listings, and in reality, I think I have about 50 to 60 unique
Okay.
products that
You're
are
just
on there.
positioning them
So
in
I've
different
tried
ways.
to, yeah, and I really do need to just kind of get in and create one that's maybe dedicated towards, the Renaissance Festival, dedicated towards cosplay, dedicated towards like the Comic-Con crowd or the D&D
Yes.
crowd, stuff like that. And I do know that that's an area for improvement on my end, definitely, just because again, you get 13 fresh tags to work with, you get,
Oh
a brand
yeah.
new title to work with, and you get a real chance to expand those keywords that you're going to get picked up
Oh
for
my gosh.
sure.
And
So
Brian,
thank
I
you.
bet you could wholesale. Like if you really wanted to blow up, I bet you could wholesale those things to gift shops, to certain gift shops.
So I have been looking around. I have one local smoke shop that I sell to. I've sold them a few times. They're up in Mesa, so they're like not quite, not right next to me, but maybe a 15-20 minute drive. My hope this summer was when it slowed down. My hope was to, get out and make some contacts in some local shops and do just that, essentially a wholesale order. And what's nice about those wholesale orders is, they order 10 of them from me at a time. They're very nice about which ones they want me to make. I go in, I drop them off, I chat with them. They're very nice folks. And it would be nice. I think you're right to have, maybe 10 or 20 of those shops that are ordering regularly from me. And I do believe that is the next step. I just kind of have to get off my rear end and get out there and get it
Oh,
done.
no, and I mean,
Nothing.
I'll be the first to understand, like, you're making a choice because you gotta make all those by hand, but I think even on, like, a website like Faire, perhaps, it would just be I'd be very curious if you go that route, you'll have to keep us posted. But anyway, I
I
just get
will.
excited because 'cause I'm like, "How would you scale this?" It's, like, such an interesting
Yeah.
niche.
Oh yeah. When I listened to your episode on Fair, that was very good.
Yes, Allison's great.
And
You can email her too with questions.
oh, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome.
she's
And
cool.
honestly, that might be my easier way to kind of dip a toe in it. I don't really have to
Yes.
drive around to 20 shops with a stack of stuff and say, "Hey, would you like to buy these?" I think those customers are already on Fair, which is nice, so it might almost work like Etsy just on the wholesale side.
Yeah, it's like just like pros and cons. Like you get some convenience back, but then you've got to ship, but then you lose some of the profit I don't know. So you've got to look and see what's right for you. But either way, it's going to be super cool. And I do think there's potential to scale it for sure. Like, I don't like the Renaissance crowd feels like it's only getting bigger, that whole niche. But anyway, tell us the story. So you got on Etsy. Did you start making sales right away, or did you kind of have like a breakout moment? What were those earlier days like?
So Etsy, I want to say, was within maybe about a week or two. I got my first sale, which, and
Oh
I
my
didn't even
gosh.
know, like,
That's
the
rare.
phone. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. The phone went off and it made that cha-ching sound, and I wasn't aware that that's
Yes.
what it was going to do. And I hear my phone make this bizarre sound, and I walk over to it and I look up, I go, oh my gosh, I sold a pipe. And I was just sitting there. I wasn't out there saying, buy my pipe, buy my pipe. I was, just sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden, the cha-ching went off. And what's funny is I think, obviously they do that on purpose, but I feel like it gives you that, all of a sudden you're just electrified, I guess, and you're just so excited that you made that first sale. And, of course I ran out into the garage, and I've got a little shop out there, and I still start making that pipe right away because I'm just so excited to get it out and get it to this person. And so I even wrote them a really nice, note in the first package just saying, hey, thank you so much for my first Etsy sale. I appreciate you trusting me. And, it was an honor to make your pipe, and I'm very excited about it. And, they left me some feedback that said they really enjoyed that, which felt nice. But after, maybe, like I said, a week or two, I got that first one. And then, a couple days go by, I get another, a day or two goes by, I get another.
Wow.
And then it really took maybe about a month before it was coming in consistently, whereas at least one a day. Sometimes I get 5 a day, or 6. And I think 6 has been my record in one day. It was 6 sales, which is great. I mean, that's almost $400. I mean, so that's a
Yeah.
that's a darn good day. I'm pretty happy about that. And obviously those don't happen all the time, but when they do, it's awful exciting to talk about. But I came in right around the end of July or early August. So I think my first sale
Oh,
was,
okay.
yeah. So I'm basically just hit my year pretty much. So I just hit my year. Coming in at that time, I was kind of coming in, I think, to that busier, fourth quarter kind of Etsy. They're advertising more and they're
Sure.
getting you more sales. So, I ramped up rather fast and I sold, I want to say, about 300 pipes by Christmas. So it was quite quick. And then the January thing, and honestly, most of the way through January, I was still doing 20, 30 a week through January. February, March slowed down to the point where I thought that Etsy closed. It slowed down.
It is. It's so disconcerting, isn't it? Yeah. I wonder why in January too, though. Like, why were your sales happening in January?
And I have absolutely no idea. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember there being many, if any, gift receipts or gift messages that were in those. There were a ton of them in the ones leading up to December. But I remember I went out of town rather for Christmas. So we have relatives that are in Yuma. That's my wife's side of the family. So we're out in Yuma, and 5-6 times a day, my phone is going off with the cha-ching sound. And I'm sitting there going, how am I going to make all of these? I just had absolutely no idea. So I was super happy, but I was also super terrified because I really thought that, okay,
Yes.
now's my chance to run away. Nobody's going to be buying anything for a little while, or it'll be slow for a little while. I'll be fine. And gosh, yeah, January, I just thought, like, wow, these rumors about Etsy slowing down in Q1 are completely false, at least for me. And then it did.
Mm-hmm.
It did in February, and I think I was doing maybe about 1 a day or 5 a week, roughly. And then we're back to where we are now. I mean, I'm doing 50, 60 a month, pretty consistently. And what I'll say about that is one of the things that I kind of like to do, and I'm sure you saw my pipes. They definitely look different. They're not.
They're awesome. Yeah. Very,
Thank you.
very clever.
Thank you. They're not the same
Whimsical.
old. Thank you. They're not the same old brown pipe, that you buy everywhere, right? And my thought with that was, I don't want to be in competition with everywhere, because those folks that are doing that have been doing that for, some of the companies that have been making pipes have been making them for 200 years, so they're phenomenal, they're well trusted. If you have a choice of buying one that looks the same from me or from one of these, long-standing companies, why are you going to buy it from me? Like, I know I wouldn't, most of us are going to go to what we're comfortable with. I don't remember the author, but I remember hearing this thing about a book called The Purple Cow. And okay.
Seth Godin.
Yes. Oh, okay. There it was, Seth Godin. And basically the premise of the book was that, if you're looking out at a field of cows, you're not really going to notice any one of them. but you're just going to notice there's a field full of cows. But if one of those cows was purple, well, that's the only one you're going to talk about. It makes it real, real simple. It sticks out. It's the only one you're going to see. It's the only one you're going to talk about. So I decided with my pipes, I'm not going to make any that are the same looking as what you could buy somewhere else. And I realized mine's a 16-inch long pipe, so it's already getting ahead just with the shape. But I meant with the colors and everything like that too. So I sell purple pipes, pink pipes, all kinds of different colors that you just don't find from traditional makers. And I think that that's what really helps me, because that customer that wants a rustic purple pipe is just never going to find that from a major manufacturer. They have to find that from somebody like me.
That's okay. So you really answered. I was going to kind of pop in the question of, why do you think you had such quick and such, I don't know, like that's a lot of success to have right away. And I think you just nailed it. Like you found an area where there was opportunity. A pipe requires specialized skill. I'm not going to just go into my garage and make a pipe. It would take 30 pipes for me to get good at it, at least. And I'm probably not going to have the staying power to do it. Even most woodworkers aren't going to want to try to figure out how to make that hole happen that you were talking about. So you've picked the perfect thing. It's like something that you can do efficiently and that you love to make, but that is different enough from what is happening that you're going to, like, no one's even really going to try to compete with you.
No, and that's, and it was another thing that I kind of remember listening to too. They were saying different is better than better, and it really is, just because my pipes, again, I'm right now, at least, I'm the only place that you can get them. I'm sure if it gets busy enough, other folks will start making stuff that looks similar. But one of my gifts is I really have that curiosity, and I really just love to try new things. So when I'm in the shop, I'm making my normal pipes, but I'm also, kind of rolling around ideas in my head as I'm doing it. Like, what if I made a texture that kind of looked like hammered metal? I think that would be cool.
Cool.
Or what if I did that wood burning technique? I think it's called like shishugiban or something like that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but you burn it first, then seal it. There's so many different things that you can do, and those wheels are turning all the time, and I just keep on coming out with these new designs and new textures, new color combinations and whatnot. And so I really feel like I do have, that momentum to kind of keep that fresh, to where I keep putting out new things that are interesting and that are just, again, not the same as you would see it anywhere else. So, again, I do believe you're right. That is probably one of the secrets to that early success, is that, what I'm selling isn't available in 22 other shops. It's available in mine, and that's really it.
All right, friend, this one is for my people who want to build and scale an Etsy shop for physical products. You may not know this about me because I've run and talked about all different types of shops since launching the podcast, but I actually got my start on Etsy in physical products, and to this day, I consider that my expertise. My very first Etsy business was a handmade shop for wood signs that my husband and I built, painted, boxed, and shipped, and we ran that puppy for 6 amazing years and made hundreds of thousands of dollars with that shop. I will never forget it. I'm so grateful. I know what it's like, and I know how to build a successful handmade business. It can be really hard in the beginning, especially because the physical part of the product creation takes up a lot of time and energy. And then you have to pair that with like having to develop the actual skills of getting people to buy them. It's a whole different mammoth of a ball game. So if that is you, you're planning a physical product shop, or you've got one that's not getting the results that you want, you need my flagship Etsy course. It's called Listings That Sell 2.0. And I will literally teach you everything I know, every secret up my sleeve, and the entire strategy that I used. And now hundreds of other students have used as well to get sales on Etsy. We're going to talk about how Etsy works and how to leverage the algorithm, how to find pockets of demand so that you don't list your products and just get crickets. I'm going to teach you everything about SEO, or search engine optimization, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm going to show you how to use the right words on your listings to make sure that they get seen by shoppers. We're going to talk about product photography tips, shipping, pricing, shop setup, legal and tax basics, and so much more. You're also going to get access to my private student Facebook group, which I am in every single day answering questions, and we support and celebrate each other all the time. So, bottom line, if you want to make this Etsy thing work for you, I have over 20 hours of training waiting for you so you can master the Etsy marketplace or fill in any gaps of knowledge that you need. Or if you're strapped for time, which is 100% where I'm at right now, and you just need the bottom line, I've provided a fast track roadmap so you can get through the most critical lessons in under 5 hours. If you are ready, let's do this together. I'm going to hold your hand. You can visit the link in the show notes to learn more, and I will see you on the inside. Oh my gosh. What about SEO? Did you kind of figure that out before you got onto Etsy, or did you just do your best and see what happened?
So I listened to a lot of your episodes,
Yeah, we kind of get
specifically
into
the
it, don't
one.
we?
Oh yeah, well, absolutely, yeah, and just listening to that and just helping, basically giving me that standard of, hey, this is what a good listing looks like. This is what good SEO looks like. This is what a good description looks like. This is how you do a nice title. Putting together all of those things. And then also too, my background with making websites, is I had to make a website where the page had good SEO, so that way you would find it, read my post, on how to, hang a picture, or read my post on how to drill a hole perfectly straight, or whatever I was writing about at that time. And, you find mine, so that way you read to the bottom and you hopefully buy one of my books. So I've been fighting the Google algorithm for a decade,
Okay.
and that's tough, obviously, because, Google is definitely a tough one to beat. So when I moved over to Etsy, I did, between my existing experience and what I picked up about Etsy specifics from you, I really did have a good foundation for, okay, what makes a good title? What makes a good description? How do we write copy that sounds confident, and that is selling, but is not pushy, and, is informative, but not, telling you 50 reasons why you shouldn't buy it. And, so a lot of those things I had that basis for, and so when I feel like I write a decent listing. Now, I also do feel like I could probably do a little bit better on, because when I copy my listings, really the only thing that I have to change is what the pipe is. So if it was a
Okay.
smooth brown mahogany, I would change it to a rustic black and tan. So like 4 words change from one description to another, and then obviously the title is different. So I think I could probably do a little bit better there. But it is hard to describe a pipe differently when really the difference is just the color. So there's a little
Totally.
something,
Yeah.
that I have to kind of do with that. But again, yeah, I really think that was the helpful part, just absorbing all of that information, through the podcast for all of that time driving to and from work. And then by the time I was ready to put that on paper and actually create, something on Etsy and create that first listing, I wasn't wondering, I didn't get to the title and go, oh my gosh, how do we create a good Etsy title? Okay, so let's go research for 2 hours and figure that out. Okay, now I write my title. Oh, what do they mean attributes? Okay, now we're going to research that and figure out what that is and come back in 2 hours and put that in. I already knew what a lot of that was just from listening to you. So when I wrote that first listing, I think I wrote it in 15 minutes. It was super duper
Nice.
quick.
That's what we're
Yeah.
going
And I
for.
felt good about it in 15 minutes, which, you wouldn't think you would. so, so again, I do appreciate just all that information over the year. That was definitely really nice to get, and really nice that you share all that.
Well, no, it like makes my day hearing it actually, because now the podcast has been around long enough where I can hear from people like, no, really, this actually made my shop work. Do you know what I mean? Because I've really tried to not have, and I don't have any, I mean, obviously there's so much that we can cover when most people just listen and they're not watching, and I'm not screen sharing, right? There's only so much I can cover, which is why there's a course. But otherwise, I have no, and I don't know why my words, I have like such toddler brain today. I'm not holding anything back, genuinely. But Brian, I accidentally interrupted you, and I think you were going to say there was a specific episode that you liked, or a series. So was there something in particular that really helped you understand the listing setup that you can harken back to? If not, no problem. But I wanted to ask because I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's okay. I don't remember the numbers and stuff. Essentially, what I do is I go into the podcast, and I'm specifically looking for the ones that are for handmade makers. So a lot of the
Okay.
print on demand stuff. I've listened to a few of them, and there's definitely some good stuff in there that I've applied to my
Yes.
shop. But I find that I get a lot more, when you're interviewing someone that makes things handmade, or that's kind of
Yes.
going that more, I guess, traditional Etsy route. So, and I really don't know any specific episode numbers, but I mean, like I said,
Okay.
I just go through and I download every single one of them that looks like it might remotely have something beneficial for me, through through the way that I do it. And I just listen to them on the way to and from work. So a lot of times I don't even know what episode number I'm on, and it's hard for me sometimes to remember the guests and stuff like that, though they've all been awesome. But just picking up those little pieces of information where maybe a guest, will just talk about, even something dumb like use all 13 tags. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why
So
wouldn't
many
you
people
do
don't, and
that?
you wouldn't believe the majority of people I coach don't use all 13 tags. You're leaving it on the field, guys. All 13, use them.
Yeah, yeah. And even if your last one has to be just something like, again, let's say you're in like the most microscopic of micro niches, like
Right.
left-handed dachshund owners that live in Vermont, or just something
Love it.
extraordinarily basic. Even if one of your tags has to be Vermont, just put it in there. I mean, it's better than
Yes.
having nothing. I mean, obviously you want to be more specific than that, on the front side, but if you're down to the last couple and you just cannot for the life of you, even with, looking at Everbee or looking at eRank, even if they can't help you, for some strange reason, which would be pretty
They
rare, but
really should, right? You
yeah,
copy paste.
you'll
Yeah,
get
you
it.
can.
Yeah, you'll get it out of there. But even if you're not using one of those things, put something in there that has to do with that product. And just again in that description, just them giving more weight to the description now. Write a
Yes.
really nice description. Take a few minutes. It's okay. Just talk about the pipe like for someone, or talk about your product like for someone that doesn't know about it. Because I think that's one of our problems too, is like we know our product inside and out.
Yep.
So for us, like we don't really care that it's 18 and a half inches by 4.5 inches, but like somebody else really does. And we may not care that it's pine instead of red cedar or some other type of wood, but there's someone that really does. So just putting all of that stuff in there where it may seem, I'm just use the word obvious. I mean, that's probably not the best word, but it may seem obvious to you, but your customer really wants a lot of times to have that stuff in a description. And if they don't, it's okay. They'll just read through and they'll stop when they're ready to stop. I don't think you're going to overwhelm anybody with a good description.
No, and I mean, like I always say, like the pictures are more, you want it in the description, but you really want the important stuff in the pictures. But I just had this realization the other day, and I'm kind of explaining it differently now in my coaching calls. And I'm just going to tell you guys this. When you're putting together your listing, I think you need to put it together like it's for the person who would buy it for someone else. Okay. So, like, I don't fish, right? Or I fish very little. But let's say my dad is an avid fisherman and I, for Christmas, want to get him something for a fisherman off of Etsy. I don't even know what I'm looking for. So you have to set up the listing with the information like for someone who's clueless, because you're thinking, oh, I'm a fisherman expert. A fisherman's going to see this. They're going to know exactly what it is. Well, okay, unless it's like Granny Fran who's never touched a hook in her life, or you know what I mean? So we have to kind of think about it that way too. And sometimes I even suggest create two separate listings for the same thing. And one of them is for the expert, the person who would be like you and would know as much as you. And the other one's for the same product, but it would be for the person who'd be clueless. And it's the gift for listing. And it helps them understand. And they're less interested in maybe some of the details, although they should be in the description, but they are interested in how is it going to be packaged and showing how it's going to get shipped out, or what kind of, you know what I mean? I don't know, Brian. So I've been thinking about that lately. Like there's better ways for us to explain it. And so I'm glad you said that. And I also want to suggest, because I'm sure people are listening to you and they're like, boy, would I like a playlist of what really helped him. I think his suggestion of going and finding like, okay, if you're in digital products, make sure you listen to all those episodes, pop in some others because you're going to pick up clues that you wouldn't otherwise. Same with print on demand or physical products. But I will say my first episodes, like my first probably like 30 to 50 episodes, were much heavier in the how-tos. And since then, it's been a lot more stories. So for people listening who are just like, oh, well, what did Brian listen to? Go back to those. Like I've got some that are literally like I did a coaching call that was recorded live for the podcast. And so you get to hear her questions. And then I did one, I was interviewed on someone else's channel and they were like, how do you start an Etsy shop? It's much more how-to. So not to go totally off track, although I'm famous for it. But just because Brian, when I heard you say that, I was like, people are going to be so mad that I interrupted you when you were going to say, but those are the episodes you want to go back and listen to, guys. You want to tack anything onto that, Brian, or should we go on to the next question?
No, I'm saying I think we could go on to the next. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, rant over. Tell us how you honed your process. I know efficiency is a really big deal for you. I love the way your brain works, trying to problem solve. You and my husband would be very fast friends. Because you said that the time to make every product became more reasonable, which makes a lot of sense to me on a specialized wood product. So take us through all of that.
Absolutely. So my thought process and the way that this started was, obviously I said I was just trying to make a few extra bucks for the family to make things a little bit easier. So I really thought that, well, if I have to take time away from my family to do this, because it is hands-on, you are spending time away from your family. If I have to take time away from my family, I want to make it as valuable of time as I can, right? So My first pipes, when I was making them for Etsy, would take me a few hours to make, and it was because I really didn't know exactly. I mean, well, I knew what I was doing, but again, your woodworking background, you'll understand this. Most of the time in woodworking is involved with the setup, right? So you're setting up for the cut, you're making the cut, you're measuring the piece, you're making sure it's good, you get all that dialed in. Well, after you spend 10 minutes getting all that dialed in, well, now you can just whip through as many of them as you want because it's already set up, right? So when I was making my first ones, I didn't have all that done. So I would just go out into the garage and I'd maybe cut enough strips to make, 5 or 6 pipes, and I'd cut enough blanks to make 5 or 6 pipes. I would drill them all right at that time. I would sand them all. I would shape them all, glue them all. I would do all of that stuff. But I was starting from zero. I'm basically starting from, I have this big board and now I'm going to turn it into this pipe, and there's a lot of steps in between. I have a piece of wood and I have a pipe.
My gosh.
So what I did was I decided that, well, I really need to look at the time involvement here because I just can't justify being away from my family for 3 hours to make like $40.
Exactly.
It's just not going to make sense, and it's not going to be sustainable. They're never going to see me again. Right. So I really just started looking at the process and I looked at, well, what part of my building process takes the longest? And maybe, and what part of my process is something that maybe if I had a little better tool, it would go a little bit better. And obviously I'm not telling anybody to go out and spend $10,000 on woodworking tools to make your process faster. I mean, if you have the money, knock yourself out. But, if you have that money, who knows, you might not be working on a side hustle, you might be just fine. But anyway, so I started looking at those processes and I identified, my first one, right? So I have a buffer, which for those of you that aren't familiar with that, it's basically a machine that spins a wheel. And that wheel that's on there, it may be about 8 inches in diameter. And it has different things on it, whether it's sandpaper or wire bristles, or it might be cloth, like in the case of a buffing pad. And essentially the motor spins it really, really fast. And then you bring your piece of wood up to it. And if you're sanding, you'll use the sander. If you're texturing, you'll use the wire wheel. If you're putting on a shellac or a buffing finish, you'll use the buffing wheel. But I had one of those that only had one wheel. So I would put on the first wheel, do the first operation, take it off, put on the second wheel, do the second operation, take it off, put on the third wheel, do the third operation. And you go through that, 4 times for every single pipe. Well, you're changing that wheel and it's adding a couple minutes every single time you're doing it. So I went to Harbor Freight because I knew I wanted to get another tool, but I also knew that I didn't, it didn't make sense to go buy, again, $10,000 worth of tools to try to make a few bucks. So I bought 2 inexpensive buffers or 2 inexpensive motors. And now all 4 wheels sit on there. So I don't change any wheels anymore. I go to the first one, then I go to the second one, then I go to the third one, then I go to the fourth one, then it's done. So it took a 10-minute process, and brought it down to maybe a 1 or 2 minute process. Same thing with the stains. So most traditional wood stains take several hours or overnight to dry all the way before you can go on to the next step. I decided, and then this is a pipe making thing, but so I decided this kind of early, but I was like, well, I'm going to use alcohol-based dye stains. Basically, it's a concentrated dye that mixes with regular old denatured alcohol that you get in the hardware store, and it dries almost instantly. You can literally wipe it on and blow on it, and you'll watch it just evaporate, and it's dry, completely dry at that point. So in 10 seconds now, I can go from one step right to the next one.
Wow.
So just again changing, now
cool.
I have to take, this 3-hour break I used to have to take, now I don't have to take. And even just batch processing. So instead of making 4 or 5 pipes at a time, when I'm out there milling from large pieces of wood, I'll mill enough stems. I'll mill 200 stems at a time, and I'll mill 200 to 300 bowl blanks at a time. That way, instead of starting from zero, when I walk out into the shop, I pick up one, I pick up the other. Now I have the 2 pieces ready that I need to make a pipe with. And I just go to shaping and then texture, stain, finish, assembly. And it's a whole lot faster. Now, through just constantly refining that process and just constantly looking for ways to make it a little bit better, I've gone from making 1 pipe about every 3 hours to making about 3 to 4 an hour, just depending on.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I was happy with it too. Now, when you say it again, when we say it like that in a 10-second span, it sounds amazing. But I've been working on this for 6 months. So I get myself 2 extra minutes here, or I get myself 10 extra minutes there, or I'd, save 10 minutes here. And next thing you know, after 6 months of just constantly doing that, and even too, just like I'm sure you've seen like the show How It's Made or Made in America, some of those shows. if you're manufacturing something or you're making something by hand, essentially you're manufacturing it, right? You just don't have a giant factory. Look at some of the machines and some of the things that they do on those shows, and you'll see that it's really about not having, let's say you have to make 5 cuts on a table saw. Well, if you went to a factory, they would have 5 table saws that are each set up specifically for
Yes.
that cut, right? So I took that mindset, and a router is a relatively inexpensive tool. And you can use it almost as a little motor. So a lot of times it can turn a gear for you, or it can be set up that way. So for a very low price, I was able to make one tool essentially that it takes my stems from a square profile to a rounded profile, which is 90% of the work, right?
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
one router set up that is dedicated to that. Then I bought another one, and I bought some wood, and I built a thing one of the biggest problems I had was fitting the end of the pipe into the bowl. You really do have to have a perfect fit there. Otherwise it just looks terrible. There's gaps and it won't function right. Well, I used to sand that by hand, and I would just sit there, I'd check it, and I'd try the fit, and I would check it again, and yeah, I see you over there. Yeah, that's horrible, right? It's definitely terrible to do. And that would sometimes it take 15, 20 minutes, and you're sweating
Yes.
because it's a hand process, right? I started looking online for ideas, and I came up with an idea, and I essentially created a machine that has a little pin on it with the router bit right next to it, and I can slide the stem on and just rotate it, and it'll carve the outside to my perfect shape. So again, it took something that took 15 minutes and dropped it down to, I can do 15 stems in under a minute now. So just looking at that process, and every one of your listeners that makes something by hand can do this. Even if it's something very,
Yes.
very simple, there's ways to make it better, faster, more efficient, and you don't have to dump a lot of money into it. I think I bought maybe $500 worth of tools. And that might sound crazy, but I'm a woodworker. I have, a couple $1,000s worth of tools. You accumulate them over 20 years of woodworking. You don't just buy them. You get little ones here and there. But I didn't add a ton of tooling. I just added a couple more, and I built some machines that honestly I'm kind of proud of. Like, I thought of it and built it, and it worked. It felt great. You go through all that effort, and it's like, it works, when you get to the end. And that's what really made that difference. And now I go out into the shop, and I don't feel like I'm abandoning my family to go out and pursue this thing that I'm doing to do better for my family.
I'm so excited. Also, so my husband, one thing that he did, something that took the longest, was the constant measuring. So you alluded to this, but you've got such a different product. So he built jigs. So he never had to take out the tape measure. He always just had he had like, I don't even know how I would describe it. He'd have like just something, so all he had to do was put the wood next to it and make the cut. He didn't have to measure it because the jig told him where to make the cut, and that kind of thing saved so much time.
Absolutely.
What I'm wondering is how you manage this in the 115-degree heat of Arizona.
So I have a tandem garage. It's a 2-car with a third that's at the head of one of them.
Okay.
For the longest time, again, in the beginning, you have more time than you have money. So
Yes.
I didn't have a ton to invest, in that shop setup, but I've always had a little bit of a woodworking shop. And when I say woodworking shop, it's kind of funny. It makes it out to be a little bit more than it is. It's a spot in the garage. It's always been a spot in the garage, But the first thing I did was I went and bought a bunch of moving blankets. I bought 4 of them, and I sewed them together with my sewing machine to basically make a giant drape, essentially. And then across the top, I hammered grommets into it about every 6 inches. And then in my ceiling, I bought those little hooks with the screw on the end that you can just kind of screw in, like for a plant hanger or something like that. And I popped a screw in the ceiling about every 6 inches. And I took that space that was maybe like 15 feet by 12 feet or so, like whatever a single car garage size is. And I bottled it down to about half that size. So I was in basically like a 10 by 10 space. And then I bought a portable air conditioner.
Okay, there we go.
Oh yeah. No, we're definitely getting to the air conditioner. And there's 2 reasons for that. Everyone's thinking the comfort reason, right? Obviously you don't want to be hot.
I'm thinking survival, Brian. I would go from comfort to staying alive.
Oh yeah. Well, and on the staying alive path, with woodworking, if you're not safe about it, it's only a matter of time before you hurt yourself. And if you continue to not be safe about it, it's only a matter of time before you hurt yourself to the point where you can't do it anymore. I used to work at a woodworking store, And there was a lot of clients that would come in that would have their hand all bundled up, and they would be looking for a safer way to do things. And I always said, I'm never going to be that person that comes in to a woodworking shop looking for safety when I have 9 fingers. I'm definitely going to get way, way ahead of that. So the bigger issue with the heat is you sweat. When you sweat, your hands get wet. When your hands are wet, it's very hard to hold your tools and to hold things carefully like you're used to holding them. And when you're dealing with a lathe, or you're dealing with a drill press, or you're dealing with a machine, that's helping you do the work, you are not stronger than that machine. And you are not fast enough to react to it if something goes bad. So you're not going to be able, by the time I need to get my hand out of there, your hand is already ruined. It is way, way too late. So the air conditioner, aside from comfort, which I definitely appreciate, don't get me wrong, I definitely appreciate that. It's really to keep me from getting sweaty to the point where I feel uncomfortable holding the tools, to where now I'm risking hurting myself. And again, they think sometimes people fall into the mistake of, well, it's only one cut, or it's only one, pipe, or it's only one product. I'll be fine. I'll just do it real quick. Well, it's only one yourself all the way to the hospital, because eventually it's going to get you. So basically that's what I did. I created this drape to make the area smaller. And then I bought an air conditioner. So I'm basically in a 10 by 10 space, and I bought an air conditioner that was good for 450 square feet. So I basically 4 times power, overpowered my area, which my first air conditioner I bought from my first shop was the same square footage as the shop, and it might as well have been a space heater. I mean, it was absolutely worthless.
That was our experience.
So I did, yes. So I did the opposite this time. I got something that was overpowered, and without having to spend money on something that's, good for 1,000 square feet, let's say, I just engineered my space to be a little bit smaller that I'm in by hanging that drape. And honestly, I hung that moving blanket. You turn on that little air conditioner, and in 15 minutes, it's almost too cool out there. I mean, it's just, absolutely incredible. And then since now I've been doing better with the pipes, and I do have a little bit more income from that I can improve my situation. My neighbor across the street was actually a general contractor for a lot of years. Really, really nice man. I told him I was going to build a wall on the end of my 3rd car garage. So basically now I have a normal 2-car garage, and then a door and a wall on the other side to open for a real shop,
Yeah.
So now I actually have a wall and a door and a what I would consider now a real shop. And the air conditioner.
We've got to tell Etsy about you. We've got to get them out to film I feel like you'd be a perfect feature piece.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. That'd be so cool.
I need to figure out, okay, guys, if I can find a link where we can do that, we all need to go click it and submit him to them, because I feel like they need to take a look. Your product is way too cool, Brian. That would be bananas.
Thank you so much. That's so nice.
No, I just think you should. I'm not blowing gas at all. I've actually probably never said this on the podcast before. Your product and your process is perfect. They need to see it. I wanted to ask you, what third-party tools have helped you the most?
So I have used eRank. I have a subscription to them.
Okay.
And really, I used to use some of the SEO tools for doing a website, and I'm forgetting the name of the big one right now. But it was $100 a month. I think it was SEMrush. So I used to use SEMrush back in the day.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm saying, I didn't even realize I was saying it wrong all these years. But yeah,
I may be saying it wrong. No, Brian, most likely I'm saying it wrong. No worries at all.
Well,
yeah.
And it's funny too, because you only read something, so we don't really even know how it's supposed to be said. But so I was used to using a tool that would tell me the things that people are searching for, right?
Yes.
Because that's really, really important. And kind of back to your idea about, you are writing your listing for the buyer. You're not writing your listing necessarily for the end user, though a lot of times they will be the same, but a lot of times they won't too. So I was used to the concept of, I don't necessarily know what everyone is really looking for when they're looking for my thing, because I maybe have 2 or 3 names for it, but the world has 20 or 30 names for it, and just because someone doesn't know my 2 or 3 doesn't mean I don't want to sell them one. So I started out with eRank just because it was, Etsy specific. I am entertaining the idea of switching over to Everbee, just because a couple of the things I've listened to with your show before, just kind of, where it helps, I think it may help a little bit better at identifying, some of the opportunity spots, whereas
I
eRank, I
see
think
it,
is
and that's the thing.
still.
Okay, so I haven't played with eRank much at all, but I know it's supposed to be awesome. I just sort of like have stayed loyal to the ones I started with that worked for me, because I feel
Mhm.
like since I'm not trying, and maybe what I'll do when I start a new shop is I'll use eRank and I'll try something else, but I like to be very authentic to you guys, but this is what I use. So that's all. I hear amazing things about eRank. I actually think so. I think Everbee has the most accurate data, especially in terms of, and I'm not saying compared to eRank. I haven't looked at it. I'm saying between Sales Samurai and Everbee. I use Everbee to figure out all the information about a listing in a shop, and that is profoundly helpful. We didn't have that back when I was building my first shop. And I use it for what was I going to say? Oh, being able to see like how many searches there are a month. I think Everbee's estimation on that is very good, whereas Sales Samurai's estimated searches per month is terrible. It's like very inflated and off the charts. But
Mm.
I still can't shake Sales Samurai because I like their keyword tool, where if you type in a word, it'll give you 500 related searches. Everbee
Oh,
has it, but the way that the list that they give you to me isn't as helpful. Like if I put in dachshund on Sales Samurai, it's then going to give me a list of every other dog that's searched. It's a whereas like eRank
mm.
is just going to, or eRank. I'm sorry, I'm probably confusing people. Everbee is just going to give me like dog thing, and that's not what I need. I want the other breeds. So I don't know. Tell us, from what does eRank give us? You be the eRank expert.
So for eRank, I mean, I really use it just for the keyword tool. I know it has a
Okay.
bunch of other tools there, but I haven't really messed with them too much.
How does it
But what
work?
I've
Like,
kind
tell
of
me what you do.
So it has a search bar, and you can put in your basic term, right? So say I put in long stem pipe, right? Which
Yes.
anyone looking at my pipe would say, well, that's a long stem pipe right there, right? Well, it turns out that's not what people search for when they're
No, I
searching
would
for
be
a long stem pipe.
Lord of
So
the
and
Rings pipe, which you can't even use that, but still, that's what I would
well,
type in.
and that's the problem. So you can't use that. And here's the issue with that. So long stem pipes have been around since like colonial times. So they've been around for a very,
Okay.
very, very long time. And what's interesting about them is they were around at a time where people didn't have a lot of money, right? So these tavern owners, they wanted to sell alcohol and they wanted to sell tobacco, right? Well, they could sell you tobacco, but most of these people were so poor they didn't even have anything to smoke it out of. So what they did was they made these very long clay pipes, which I'm sure most people have seen, long white clay pipes with a very small bowl at the end. And the idea was you would walk into the tavern and you would take one of these pipes off of the shelf and you would break the last inch off, because that's what the last guy had in his mouth.
Oh
And
my
now you
gosh.
have this fresh pipe. Yeah, now I'm going to buy my alcohol and buy my tobacco from this merchant, from this saloon or wherever you're in. You enjoy it while you're there, and at the end, you put that pipe on the rack and you walk out the door. The next person that comes in breaks an inch off the end, and the process repeats until the pipe's too small to use. Then they chuck it and they get new ones. So the Lord of the Rings pipe has been around since probably Tolkien's great grandparents were babies. I mean,
Right.
it's been around for a very, very long time. It just kind of became a Gandalf pipe or a Lord of the Rings pipe or a wizard pipe, just through those movies coming out and then that becoming the more common way of referring to it. So thanks to eRank, I found out no one's necessarily looking for a long stem pipe, or not as many. But a lot of people are looking for a Gandalf pipe. And
Yes.
thankfully, Gandalf is from Norse mythology, so it's a slightly modified name that already existed. So when I looked that up on the trademark database, I didn't see any issues, so I went with it. But obviously, I try not to use any of the other words that are associated with it, because I don't make anything that's like mine are a similar shape and whatnot, but they don't look like the movie ones. The problem with the movie ones is they're movie ones. The way that the stem, and that's the problem, is if you're actually trying to smoke a tobacco pipe, they're actually designed really poorly. So when you're smoking a tobacco pipe, obviously fire burns up, or it burns up and down, it doesn't burn sideways. So when you light something on fire and you draw through it, that burning is going to go down through it, but the heat obviously is going straight up, just like in a campfire. The pipes in the movies, the bowl is here and the stem comes out pretty straight with its bend and a little curve to it. But in order to actually smoke that, you kind of have to hold it straight out in front of you like this, because you need to keep that bowl vertical. If you
Huh.
smoke it down lower at a more natural position, well, now the bowl is sideways, and that fire is burning up into the side of it. And really, a pipe, you're controlling a fire inside of something that's flammable. So if you let
Right.
it sit like that, yeah, it's just going to burn right through it. So I designed mine with a much steeper angle where the stem meets the bowl. So now I can sit, down like this, and the stem, kind of comes up to me. I'm in more of a natural seated position, or more relaxed position. So mine actually function better than the ones in the movies because obviously, I mean, it's not for a movie. It's,
It's not a
it's for,
prop. Yeah, it's a real
yeah,
thing.
it's not a prop. So I think, through those little improvements, and stuff like that, I've created a product that has a lot of that look that you're going for. And maybe, hey, I
Absolutely.
want that wizard pipe, but when you get it, you don't feel weird while you're trying to hold it out here 2 feet in front of you and use it. You can actually use it like a normal person would use a tobacco pipe.
I love it. It's so clever. Also, like, how fun are those little nuances? That I enjoy that so much.
Thank
Okay, I
you.
want to get into, as we kind of wrap up here, I want to get into like the biggest lessons you've learned. I know you've got stuff about shipping you need to tell us because I can't even fathom shipping one of those things, Brian. No, thank you. Tell us your wisdom, and I really want you to share, some maybe pearls of wisdom, biggest lessons for people who are getting started or who are trying to scale.
Gotcha. So here, we'll tackle the shipping part first.
Yeah. I
So
didn't know if that fell into it or not.
Oh, no, and it's okay. And honestly, that is part of it. So, again, just back to just rolling things around in your head, so you have your drive to work, you have your lunch breaks at work, you have so many little opportunities where I think most people pull out their phone and play around on social media or TikTok or whatever they're doing. And I do that every once in a while too. I'm a human being, that's just kind of what we do. But I do spend a lot of my time just kind of trying to solve a problem, and I really think if you just kind of put a problem in your head and you just kind of work on it throughout the day, after a couple of days or whatever it is, you're definitely going to solve it. And one of those problems that I had was shipping. So boxes are expensive, shipping is expensive. The boxes that I found on Amazon that were like 60, 70 cents or whatnot, they were so thin you could read through them. I mean,
Oh boy.
and they were squishy in the middle and just really not very good. Now the really good hard ones that, you could drop off of a building and it would be fine. Those are like $6, $8 each. So I could protect the pipe, but then I'm getting rid of a good portion of the profit, in that process. So I was at my main job, my corporate job, and I noticed in one of the parts rooms that they had this triangle shaped box that some of the manufacturers ship their parts in. And I'm looking at the box going, gosh, that's just such an odd box. Every other box they've got is some version of a rectangle, and this one's is a long triangle. And then I started remembering back to science class, and it was like the triangle is the strongest shape in nature, and they use it in architecture and in geometry and whatnot. So I really had the idea. I was like, I bet you that's a pretty darn strong box. I wonder if I could do something like that with my packaging, with my pipes. So obviously nobody makes a triangle shaped box, at least not one that I could find, at a reasonable price. So I got the idea, well, what if I took an existing box, like it's a big old U-Haul box, and just perforate it, or not perforate it, but just score it maybe or indent it every 6 inches and essentially roll this thing into a triangle. And my idea behind rolling it into a triangle was I would do a double layer triangle. So now I've got this in between, those 2 layers on the end.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Now I can take an end cap and I can stuff it in between those 2 layers and seal the end. So it took me probably 2-3 weeks of rolling this around to kind of get to the final product. But I can show it to you really quick. So essentially I just buy these boxes from U-Haul. And you get 4 panels out of each box. So what I do is I put my template on here and I run my scoring tool over it so that way I can bend it. And I basically just roll this thing into the triangle shape.
Wow.
There we go. So I roll this thing into the triangle shape, and then obviously I tape it. And now it gives me this end where I have these in-betweens here. So I've got 3 of them. And what I do there, after obviously taping this together so it doesn't go anywhere, is I have these little end pieces that I cut out, and you can kind of see the perforate or the indentation on there. Whoop. Got a little springy, I apologize. But yeah, so I fold those in like this, and I slide each one of these tabs in between one of those
Wow.
two layers. So now I've got a good end cap. And what's great about that is the boxes are, I think, almost $2 each. So I
Yep.
get 4 panels out of it. So I get a box for basically 50 cents, obviously plus a little extra work. But again, in the beginning, you have more time than you have money. So put in a little bit of that extra work in the beginning. But honestly, I've never abandoned these boxes because I can't find anything that's as good, unless I'm willing to spend $6-8 a box. And literally, I can take this box, put 2 end caps on it, put it on the floor, and I can stand on it. I weigh 220 pounds, so it's a very, very strong
Wow.
box. But again,
Yes.
just one more idea, and it saved money because I'm not paying a ton for my shipping and boxing now. And it just, again, that creativity, just being able to come up with it and design it, right? So now I make all of my own boxes, and they look kind of like this when they're finished,
There you go.
and
Oh,
that's
so neat. Also, to receive that as a gift would be so fun.
oh, and it's neat too. So you pop off the end, everything slides out.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and hold up one of the pipes so that they can see that
oh,
now that they've
yeah,
seen the
absolutely.
box. If you don't mind, I think that'd be so fun to see up close.
Yeah,
Oh, see,
yeah,
yeah. Okay.
absolutely. So that's
I
what
was
they look
wondering if
like.
how the angle fits in there, but that makes total sense now. That's really handsome.
Yeah, you see. So now you can use it at a comfortable position versus
Yes.
having to hold it more like that. But again, just nice texture, just stuff you really can't get in a lot of other places, but still that traditional pipe making methods. So that way it's not just a something to look at. You can use it, or you can look at it, or you can do both.
They're gorgeous. We need to get this out. Like they need to use your pipes on movie sets.
Oh my gosh, I would absolutely die if I got a phone call for another Lord of the Rings series. Yeah, it'd be the last thing they'd ever say to me, and I would just fall apart on the spot. Yeah, that would be
Oh, no,
tremendous.
those moments are those magical moments. We live for them, don't we? What about your tips, your lessons learned, your passing along to the next generation?
Gotcha. So and this is one that I struggled with quite a bit. Don't worry about the daily sales, right? So
Mm,
so when the smaller increment you examine something, the wilder your results are going to be, right? So like if you've ever tried to lose weight, if you weigh yourself every day, you will drive yourself insane because you're going to be up a little, down a little, up a little, down a little,
yeah.
up a little, down a little. And the days that you're up, you're going to feel horrible. And the days that you're down, you're going to feel excited. And it's just way too much volatility because the period at which you're measuring yourself is very, very small. Right now, the same thing with the weighing yourself. If you weighed yourself every hour, it'd be an even more intense roller
Oh my
coaster.
gosh. Mhm.
Because and again, and most of it is completely wrong. Because say you wake up and you're 2 pounds heavier than you were yesterday. Well, you didn't eat 8,000 calories yesterday. you know Something else happened. So it's not really true. Same day if you woke up and you were 2 pounds lighter, well, you didn't burn 8,000 calories yesterday. Something happened, and it wasn't that. So the same thing with the daily sales. There's going to be some days that you don't get any. There's going to be some stretches of a few days that you don't get any, but there's going to be days where you get two, three, four, five, and you got to remember those days just as well as you remember the days where you didn't get any. Because it's kind of right back to the hopes and fears thing. If you're going to listen to your fears, you should probably listen to your hopes at least the same amount. There's nothing wrong with being cautious. There's nothing wrong with, heeding something that, might be a cause to make a change or do something different, something you might fear a little bit. But that 5 day or that 5 sale day or that 3 sale day, well, that just knocked out the couple of days that you missed one, or you didn't have one. So looking at it maybe on a weekly average, can help, alleviate that. Like, oh my gosh, my store's tanking. I didn't sell anything today. It's like, well, you sold 3 or 4 yesterday, and remember how good that felt. It didn't just disappear. And so for me, what I like to do is I really look at my sales on a monthly basis. I really don't look at the daily ones, because even though I'm saying this to you with a ton of confidence, and it feels really good, to say it out loud, I still look at the day and go, oh gosh, would have been nice to have a sale today, you know. But then I look at my month, and my month is always right around 60 pipes. Always. It doesn't matter if I
A
have
lot of
two or,
pipes.
yeah, Thank you. Well, it doesn't really matter if I have 2 or 3 days in a row where I have absolutely no sales. And it doesn't matter if I have 2 or 3 days in a row where I have 4 or 5. That monthly sale total for me is always right about 60, plus or minus maybe 2 or 3. So that's what I look at, and I think that's a way that you can help, the folks that are new at this, especially, just kind of maintain a little bit of sanity throughout the process. Don't let a couple of days sales, not selling anything drive you nuts. It doesn't mean that everybody hates you. It just means that Etsy was, funneling customers towards something different that day, or, maybe your customers just weren't looking that day. Maybe Amazon was having a Prime sale that day and no one's looking. I mean, there's definitely a lot of external factors there. That, and really the other one that I kind of have to point to, and I know that it's been said a lot, and it's one of those things that sounds so simple that I think people just discount it, and I did too. Just open the stinking shop. It costs you 20 cents. It costs you 20 cents. Come up with 5 listings if you can. I mean, if you just have one product, it's okay. But if you have a bunch of things that you can do, come up with 5 listings, spend $1 on yourself and give it a try.
They do charge a $15 open fee now, Brian, just so you know.
Oh, they do? Oh, okay.
Just so they know. But still, it's
okay.
not.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I dodged that, I guess. When it was a little over a year ago, I dodged that one. But even then, $15 opening fee plus $1. Like, if you cannot trust yourself and believe in yourself to the price of $16, why is anyone coming to your shop ever going to believe in you and buy something from you? You need to start by just trusting yourself. And once it's out, it's out. Get it out, get it on there, and start. It's going to take Etsy a little bit of time before, you kind of move up in the algorithm and kind of get to this part where you need to be, for your keywords. You really need to just get that shop open and get that process going, because then you're going to start to get that feedback. You're going to start to get the customers like me. I get a lot of customers that ask for a 14-inch pipe instead of a 16-inch pipe. So, but I would never know that that's something that people wanted unless I had the store open and I had the sales and I was getting the feedback. I didn't know that people wanted a really short little one. I had no idea. I don't make little ones. I make really big ones. That's kind of part of my niche, But I released a line of little ones, and those have been selling great too. And it's just because I listened to my customers, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't just open it. I dragged my heels for a year thinking it was just all going to get better on its own. And I'm telling you, unless something magic happens in your life, no one is coming to save you. You really have to do it yourself and get that thing going, get it opened. Don't look back. Don't worry if it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. I look back at my first listings and I just cannot believe that I did that. And but they sell, so I spruced up some of the parts that were terrible and and kind of got back to some of the parts that weren't and got that stuff fixed up. But just don't worry about it so much. Just get it out, get it started, get going. That's the only way that you're going to not have regrets over this thing a year from now if you still didn't open it.
Hey there, How to Sell Your Stuff fam. Real quick, I want to make sure you guys know about my most popular free resource that's waiting for you over on my website. Seriously, thousands of people have downloaded this puppy because it's so packed with meaty tips to help you get more sales in your Etsy shop. So first of all, just a little background, or this won't mean much to you at all. But in case you don't know my story, when I first started my Etsy shop in 2016, I had been blogging for a while and had built a decent following on Facebook. We did a nursery reveal for some DIY reclaimed wood signs that my husband built, and we painted with homemade stencils. It's so cringeworthy now. And a few of my followers were like, oh my gosh, those are so cute. They're so rustic. Where can I buy those? And so as you can imagine, the wheels were just turning in my entrepreneurial little mind. With my baby, I wasn't going to be able to continue the social media consulting work that I've been doing because I was constantly on these team calls and needing to do hours and hours of deep focused work. And it just wasn't going to fly. And I really wanted to be present with my daughter. So that's how I ended up on Etsy. And I decided to try and sell reclaimed wood signs. It was the height of the farmhouse craze. So just imagine, like, thank you to the lovely Joanna Gaines, everything farmhouse, everything painted wood. And I thought with my blog followers, I might just have a bit of a leg up. But I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I put in the hours. I got my first round of products ready, photographed, meticulously put together my listings, clicked publish, and absolutely nothing happened. And I think I made $60 total in the first few months because of my blog followers. And then it was like absolute crickets. So like you may feel if you're just getting started and not seeing results yet, I was confused and definitely a bit discouraged. I for sure thought that I was onto something and I didn't know at all why it wasn't working. But the thing about a true-blooded entrepreneur is that we ultimately see business like a puzzle to solve, right? Like we find ways to make it fun. And we're a little bit stubborn and determined to just figure it out. As I always like to say, thanks to the book and phrase coined by Marie Forleo, everything is for figure outable. And so I dug my heels in and started studying everything I could find about making sales on Etsy. I studied the competition. I poured through best-selling listings all over the internet. I took an Etsy course and I started testing things. And lo and behold, by about 6 months, I was making more and more and more sales. Like I just keep learning and tweaking and growing and testing until it started to work. And I built my monthly income to $6,000 plus per month. Like there were even months when I would hit 10, 11, or 12K. And it was the best feeling ever. Like if you can just kind of put yourself in that moment where like you figure it out and you start really making the money. So full circle, back to that free resource that started this whole conversation. When I moved into the Etsy coaching space, I sat down and I wrote out everything that I had done to create results, like all the changes and tweaks I made that turned into more and more sales. And from that, I wrote the first rendition of my Etsy course, Listings That Sell. So I had somewhere to house like all of the details. And I created a free PDF outlining 4 major strategies I used so that I could help someone new or struggling to at least get started without having to invest in a course, right? So that PDF is called the 4 strategies I used to grow my Etsy shop from 25 to 6,000 plus per month. And it is by far my most popular, most downloaded freebie. You can absolutely check it out. The link is in the show notes for you. And I hope it gets your wheels turning and helps you start to move the needle in your Etsy shop in the direction of your goals. So grab it today. And I cannot wait to hear about your takeaways. Start collecting information. I think people feel like it's really high stakes. And I would just challenge that. That's a mindset thing that you could work on. It doesn't have to be high stakes.
No, and it's
You
not.
know,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk
you've
about
got
it.
to,
Who cares if you
no,
lose
I'm
16
famous
bucks?
for it. Go ahead.
Yeah, you lose $16. Who cares? Or 15 bucks, in a 20-cent listing. You tried, and the listing is good for a year. So you're not going to fail right away, and even if you do, you're going to learn. You can look at their stats. You can kind of pick things out of there. It's like, well, am I getting a lot of views but not a lot of purchases? Okay, well, what's wrong? Is it the product? Is it the price? Is it the message? You can start looking at stuff like that. Is my offer terrible compared to all the other ones that are out there? Or am I not getting any views? Okay, well, if I'm not getting any views, maybe my SEO isn't very good. Okay, well, we'll start fixing that up a little bit. Okay, we fixed that up a little bit. Oh, I got more views, but oh gosh, I'm just not getting as much sales as I'm supposed to. Okay, well, are my pictures good? Could they be better? Am I missing stuff about the product that people really want to know? Are you making it easy?
Yeah, unanswered questions are a big one. Unanswered
Yeah.
when they can't get an answer to their question from your listing photos specifically.
Yeah, and definitely from the photos too. And I know I do need to be better at that. I definitely picked up some tips from one of your guests that was saying they have a picture. I guess she says she has a picture of herself that's in there that's basically says, hey, I am the maker of this product. And I really was just absolutely floored by that. I love the idea because I have my face on my page. I have a video showing me making all the stuff, but I really think that people do buy with their eyes. They're not reading as much as they used to, though it is a good idea to have that stuff there so the readers can find it. But just having, I really want to spend a little bit of time with my pictures and, get maybe again, a picture of me, holding some of those pipes saying, hey, I'm going to be the person that makes this for you. It's not something I designed. It's not something that, I inspired, it's something that I physically make for you. And I do believe a lot of the, I guess maybe long-standing Etsy customers, I do believe that those customers are still looking a lot of cases for something that is made by a real person, versus, designed by me and then made in a factory overseas and then, shipped over here. I mean, because honestly, that's every product in the world. If you really think about it, every product in the world is designed by someone and made in a factory. There's a big difference between something that is handmade by a real person whose face you can see. So I definitely know I can make some improvements there. That's for sure.
Well, I'd also love for you, if I don't know what you're doing in your listing videos, but like show the pipe first, but you get 15 seconds. So show the pipe from different angles for the first 5 or 6, and then show you working for the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? Like some really cool part of the process so they can see you, but they see you physically making it. That always works really well.
No, I like that. Thank you for the tip. That's good. Right now, I kind of cheated. I use the same kind of little photo montage of the making process throughout it,
That's fine.
just so
Yeah.
I can get a video up. Which again, I got a video
Yep.
up, which is
Get
the
one up.
more
Yep.
important thing than not. It's better to have a video than have no video because it's not perfect, right? But I do like that idea because I really do want to get to the point where, you go to the video for this specific pipe. Here you can see it because now I'm demonstrating scale. I'm demonstrating weight. I mean, I'm demonstrating a lot more
Yes.
things in that first 5-6 seconds, like you said. And then I can cut right back to, here's me on the lathe. Here's me, finishing something. Here's me assembling. I do like that. Actually, that's a very good idea.
I do think, we have to remember that like the customer, for the most part, they don't really care about you, the maker. They care about them and what questions they have, which is why I suggested to Brian, start with the actual product. So the first thing they want to know is, I want to understand the scale, the size, the weight, what does this look like when it's moving? So start with that. Meet them with what they want first, and then you improve it by then showing, because then they get excited about the background, but they want their question answered first. They don't want you to feel like you're all about you. That's why I suggested that, guys, for the background. Well, Brian, where are the best places to find you and connect if folks want to follow along, if they want to buy a pipe, if they want to get to know you better, if they have questions?
No, absolutely. So, my shop itself, obviously, I try to, kind of keep that name a little quiet, obviously, just with the whole,
Yep.
kind of conversion rate issue and stuff like that. I have I have a website. It's for my woodworking stuff. It's actually a pretty big website. It's, woodworking, guitar making, ring making, all kinds of stuff like that, all the little projects that I've been in. I did pick the name a very long time ago, so it's quite a mouthful. It's West Farthing Woodworks. But I have westfarthingwoodworks@gmail.com, in my email address. And if anybody wanted to shoot me an email, I'm sure if, I sent you a couple of things. So I'm sure if you had that as a link, it would be a whole lot easier for people to use. But if anybody wanted to send me a question or two, I'd be happy to help. That's for sure.
Thank you so much. Are you on social media at all? Are you doing any of that stuff?
So I was on TikTok for a little while doing some videos. I kind of stopped that a little bit. It was working. So I definitely don't want to take anything away from TikTok. It definitely was working. I do feel
It
like I'm
takes
the
time.
oldest. Well, and it does. I do feel like I'm the oldest person on TikTok. But it is what it is. I mean, there's so many people on there that if you're going to have to pick one, I feel like that's a good one to pick. I'm also on Pinterest. I did a ton with my website years ago, and I was actually generating quite a bit of traffic through Pinterest. But now I just essentially created about 5 or 6 boards that have to do with my style of pipe. And what's nice is I go right into the Etsy app and I share it right through that. So it comes complete with titles and descriptions and all that stuff, and links it right back to my Etsy page, which is really, really good. Just to be able to share that really quickly, to Pinterest. And I'm sure there's a better strategy than what I'm doing. But every single day I go in there and I upload 1 or 2 sets of pictures from one of my pipes. And I have about 130 of them that I can work with. So I've got quite a bit of material. I just upload one to a couple of different boards every single day. And it's really easy, real passive. Just when I got a minute to think about it, I do it. And that has been helpful because I've noticed that some of the ones that I've recently pinned, I'll get a couple sales on within the next day or two. And then, I'll pin something kind of rare that I, don't normally sell. And all of a sudden I'll get a sale or two, from that. So I feel like that there's a little bit of, positive stuff happening with that with Pinterest. But obviously it's always hard to know exactly where things are coming from.
Yeah, our social media expert Julie, she said that she's tested this with her Etsy sellers, and that when you just share the link and you pull over the picture from Etsy that's square, it does not perform as well on, Pinterest kind of hides those a little bit.
Oh.
So I don't think, keep doing what you're doing, Brian, if you don't have the time. But for people listening who really want to push Pinterest, use the link from Etsy, but make your own pin that is the dimensions that Pinterest likes, and they won't suppress your images as much, and you'll get even more. But how encouraging, Brian, to hear that you're even doing just the normal square, and it's still sending you business.
No, absolutely. And I remember that, Pinterest has that. Well, yeah, Pinterest has that taller format. Yeah, you're right. Honestly, I could give that a shot. Definitely. Like I said, I do want to get better at, I do want to get better at that because, you're sharing your craft plus it's bringing you sales. So that's definitely a good thing to do. And it's, you're still improving your business at that point, which is also very good too.
This whole story has been so fascinating. Thank you. I'm going to share those links that you provided. I'll make sure and link the Purple Cow book and his guitar book as well, guys, because that's way too cool. If you're into woodworking, you may want to geek out on that. But Brian, thank you so much. This has been just a wealth of, like, first of all, such a fun story, but just a wealth of information, of wisdom. This episode is jam-packed with wisdom. So thank you for your time and for your efforts and for being willing to share with us.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's been so fun. You guys, thanks for hanging out with us today. I hope you have pulled away so many gold gems and nuggets out of this episode. And I love you to pieces. And until next week, go make something awesome. Take care, guys. And that's a wrap on this episode of How to Sell Your Stuff on Etsy. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're looking for more resources, head on over to howtosellyourstuff.com, where you'll find podcast show notes, all the links from today's episode, the blog, courses, coaching, and more. If this episode was helpful to you, awesome. The greatest compliment I can receive from you is a rate, review, and subscribe on this podcast. Not only will it allow us to connect again on a future episode, it lets me know I'm providing you with value and helps other people find this content more easily. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. Have a great day and see you next time.